Why people should learn about storytelling.
Because stories give this magical power for you to get people to remember better.
A great storyteller is not about telling extraordinary stories that have big falls, big highs, but a great storyteller is able to take the little things in life and package it in a way where it becomes interesting for other people. What are some of the common mistakes that people should avoid when it comes to storytelling?
The first common mistake that I saw was that when people say that, oh, just be yourself, go and express yourself, but to what extent? People were always asking, right?
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Influence Show where influence meets breakthrough. Now every week we dive into topics about influence, mindset, breakthrough so that you are able to level up your communication game. And today in this episode we are going to talk about one of the most powerful things about communication, and that is storytelling. Now the things that we're going to talk about today is not just about normal storytelling, it's about learning how to tell stories that inspires others to sell your ideas better and also to stand out as well. So today here with me is my partner Wicked as well.
Hi, it's me again.
All right. So with that being said, let's uncover how stories is able to move heart and also how do you stand out using the power of story. Right. So with that, Wicked, maybe let's start off by sharing with me why people should learn about storytelling.
So you see, the answer to this, right, is that if you try to recall, right, what are some of the movies that you have watched, right? Chances are you can actually remember a lot of all these stories, right? Why? It's because stories actually give this magical power for you to get people to remember better. Because when you present facts, figures, data, right, everything is like scattered. Story is what connects all of these things together. Yeah, so I think that which is why if you learn storytelling, right, it's not just about what we do as a parent, what we do as a child, but it's also very applicable even up until when we are in corporate as well.
Right. And also I heard about this saying that says when you give facts and logic, so that is where you are talking about you are influencing the conscious mind.
Yeah.
Right. But then when you tell stories, you are actually influencing the subconscious mind, and then your ideas get accepted much easier. Right. So with that being said, why do you think stories are powerful in influencing people? Like, what's your take on this?
Because one of the things is actually story builds relatability. And in fact, there's actually a study done for that, right? It's called the brain-to-brain coupling study. Yeah, I think this is something that we always mention about in our Influence Breakthrough Masterclass. So there was this study done by Yuri Hassan. He did this study. He invited a group of researchers into the room, and then he get one speaker to stand in front and to deliver a story. A very simple story, a story of this person going to a prom night. Right? So, and then they measure all these brain wave of these speakers as well as all these audiences. And they notice something really game-changing here. They notice that whenever the speaker is sharing a story, everyone's brain's wave is actually reacting exact same way. Right? When the frontal cortex of the speaker lit up, the frontal cortex of the audiences also lit up as well. It is as if they are also in that story itself. So this is the phenomenon that we call brain-to-brain coupling, right? So when you are telling a story, you are not just telling a story. You are enrolling the other persons into the story so that they also feel that they are inside that story as well. So that's why people love going to watch movies. They love listening to stories. And during the ancient days, right, people just sit around campfire and just started telling stories, hearing tales. So when you use it in the context of influence, that's when it's even more powerful. You start off with a story to captivate their attentions, and then you build the relatability, build the brain-to-brain coupling. Then when there's connections, only when you start to pitch whatever that you want to say, then the chances of that person getting is actually much higher.
So I really love what you said about stories help to build relatability, and also in the past, where you look at the ancient times, that is where people gather around campfires and they tell stories to inspire other people, right? And back then, they don't just give out information, they actually tell stories so that they get inspired by it. And this is one of the things that they do for their recreation as well, right? So, but then you see, when it comes to the modern world right now, we are basically being bombarded with different information, right? And that's why people start losing influence. So with that being said, I would like to ask a personal question to you, is that do you remember in your life what is the one of the few most impactful stories that you heard and it changes the way on how you think or how you behave.
Okay. What is the one important stories that really impacted me as a person? There's actually a lot of stories that really impacted me, but I think one stories that impacted me the most, every now and then I actually have stories that impact me the most, right? So I think one of the most recent one was a movie that I watched. Yeah, was actually F1. Have you watched that
I
F1?
love that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good show. Yeah, so in that story, it's all about there was a young racer and then there's a very veteran racer. So the young racer tend to get distracted with all of the like shiny things, advertisements, deals, and all these things. And then this older racer will always say this, right? Keep your head down and drive. It's like focusing on what you do. Don't be distracted by all of these shiny things all around. Do what you are doing and make sure that you are damn good at it. Yeah, so that message, right, really impacted me. When I was watching that movie, I was inspired. I was thinking about my business. Oh, wow. I was thinking about what I do. Wow, I should be focusing on getting the crafts right. Yeah, so I think that's the beautiful thing about story. Yeah, and if you ask me like, are there a lot of different type of stories? Yes, every now and then there are a lot of different inspiring stories as well. Yeah, but what about yours?
For me, I think that so I think F1 is one. Okay, so before I even talk about mine, right? So I want to talk a little bit about the F1 movie. Because like if you were to crystallize into one key takeaway from that F1 movie, what would that takeaway be?
Well, the key takeaway is like the message in the movie, keep your heads down and drive. Meaning that when you want to start something, when you want to do something, right, don't be afraid of all this boring stuff, repetitive practice, all these things that you have to sharpen your saw, right? Because those are the things that are gonna make you shine. Yeah. And a lot of time people tend to get distracted. Oh, I want to do this. Maybe I want to do that. Oh, that looks cool. Maybe I should do that. Wow. So when you're not getting your head down and to do what you're supposed to do, then you get distracted.
And how do you plan to apply this back in your business? Right, just curious. Okay. And the reason why I ask, because there's a purpose of me leading to certain things, which I'm going to tell you in a moment's time.
Okay.
But just share with me about what's your, how do you plan to apply this back in your business?
Okay, so when I first heard about this message, right, then I thought to myself, maybe it's also time for me to keep on improving myself. So for example, I'm a speaking coach. I train public speaking, all these things, right? So as you train public speaking for a long time, right, then as time passes by, you feel like you're quite confident with your content, like the things that you're going to teach is pretty much the same. So that actually challenged me, like, hey, what are some of the things, minor improvement that I can do to improve, to take my speaking skills to the next level? So one of the things that I do is to attend pronunciation coaching. Yeah, one of the things that I do was also to attend the planning to do is maybe on vocal coaching as well, to get myself learning how to sing so that I can coach others as well. It's really like getting your head down and do the boring stuff, get the fundamental right.
Okay, great. Right. So the reason why you see I asked you this question is because through a very simple story and through a movie, you tend to make up your own meaning about that story itself and how you plan to apply this back in your own life, right? Because if I were to just come in as a coach or as a partner and I straight away tell you that, hey, you need to do the boring stuff in a business, probably you wouldn't be listening to me because you'll be thinking like, hey, why are you giving me this kind of instructions?
Yep.
Right? But then you see, through a movie or through powerful storytelling, I'm not telling you what to do, but you gain your own realization from that movie. And I believe that there's a lot of realization that different people can gain from a movie, different lessons as well. And based on their past experiences, how they perceive it, what they need, and that's where they actually get what they need from the movie itself.
Yeah. In fact, after every movies, right? I don't know if you do that with your girlfriend, right? Is that after every movie, I will spend time in the cafe and then discuss with my wife. So, what's your biggest takeaway from this movie? Then we will share. Then I'll be surprised. Wow, you took away that. Then she will be surprised with my takeaway as well. Yeah. So I think that maybe the next time when you watch movie, don't just watch the movie. Maybe it's time to do some debriefing as well.
Yeah, I think it's also a good way for you to train out your reflective thoughts as well.
Yep.
Because if not, then as a speaker, when you want to present, people ask you, hey, what do you think about this? You don't have your own thought leadership.
Yep.
Yeah, but then through movies, that's where you learn how to formalize your thoughts. And always when you write down certain things, that's where you learn the best.
Yeah. So you see, right, Sri, we all know that story is really so powerful. Yeah. And I think the first 2 episodes we were sharing about our stories, and I particularly love your stories. I think your stories is like, wow, big fall and then big rise again, right? Then people will be asking, if people are actually thinking to themselves, Wicked and Shui, I do not have, my life is like pretty flat, pretty normal, nothing interesting happened in my life, right? I don't have story. Then how can I tell stories? What would you say to them?
I would say that when people feel that their life is not interesting, is because they don't, so they just go through life as a routine, and chances are they never really record down what life has to offer, right? Because if you really pay close attention to life, there's a lot of things that you could actually take as a story, right? And you don't need to have big falls or big rise for you to make up a great stories, right? So for me, I think that I always ask people this, like, have you ever faced any challenges back at your workplace, right? If the answer is yes, then you have a story to share, right? Have you ever gone through certain moments in your life where you actually felt lost in life? Have you ever argued maybe with your colleagues at work, maybe with your parents, or even with your partners as well, right? And all these things that you go through, the little details in life, these could make up a very, very good story, right? And then you can see that a great storyteller is not about telling extraordinary stories that have big falls, big highs, but a great storyteller is able to take the little things in life and package it in a way where it becomes interesting for other people. So I always tell people that it's not just about the story or the content that you share, it's about how you share those content. That is what matters the most for a great storyteller.
Yeah, I agree to that, right? So even simple conversations that you had with someone, it can all become a story. So you'll be surprised later, right? So maybe if I were to ask you, Sri, share with me one story. Yeah. What with a message, right? Or in any normal encounter, how can you actually turn a very simple conversation, a simple encounter, to become a story? Do you have something in mind that you can actually share on top of your mind?
Right. So I think the first thing that comes up is basically I had this friend actually taught me this one very important lesson, that givers always gain, and learning how to give, right? And a lot of times, see, when we talk about giving, right? So sometimes we think that, oh, I need to do something big for people. I need to be able to actually add a lot of value to these people for me to be a useful person or a useful friend. So I remember there was this one time I was having this conversation with a good friend of mine, and I was actually talking to him about I wish to learn about this thing called giving. Right. So from there, he listened to me very, very carefully. And after that, one day later, I received a book that is being posted to me to my house. And that book is called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And with a message there, I hope that this book will help you in your people skill. And this is a little gift from me. So you see, from this one act, right, I realized the power of giving. Right? I realized that actually giving, you don't need to actually do a lot of big things for people. You just need to notice what people actually need, and you give it to them through the little action, and people can actually feel it. Right? So that was one of the lessons that I've learned from this one incident, right? Now, to zoom out of this, okay, so when I tell this story, right, a friend giving a book to you is actually not a big deal.
Yep.
Right? But then the way I actually tell it, then it makes people feel that it is something that I can relate to as well. And these are the little lessons that we talk about. And with great storytelling skills, that is what takes your message to the next level.
Wow, round of applause. Right. Yes,
Yeah.
there you have it. It's like a simple stories, a friend giving him a book. And you see, you turn that into stories. And I remember it was once I did a class on storytelling, right? One student stood on the stage. You know what story that he shared? He shared the stories of him one day using the phone in the toilet, and that toilet fell into the toilet bowl.
The phone fell in the toilet.
The phone fell into the toilet bowl, and then he had to retrieve it. And then he shared that story, but he debriefed it with a really powerful message. He shared this. The reason why I share this story with you is this, right? As you are not being present in what you're doing, what will happen is that things will lose control. You will lose control, lose grip of things. So the next time, when you want to do anything in your life, be present. So when he shared this, right, people were like, whoa, like that also can, huh? Yeah, so you see,
Yeah.
you don't need superhero save the day kind of story. Anything
Correct.
can become a story.
Right. And I really love one of the quotes that I've written here is it's not about the size of your story, but the size of your reflection that matters.
Wow.
So what's your take on this? Like what do you understand about this quote?
It's about, you see, right, stories without debriefing is just stories. It's like you are hearing just for fun. But what makes story inspiring is that the speaker know how to debrief it, get the audience to reflect. Yeah, like what you did just now. You actually shared a message at the end. Then when we listen to it, then we would actually think in our context, how can we apply the same message as well? Yeah. So it's always about that when something happened in your life, right? Don't just let things pass. Ask yourself, what is this incident trying to teach me? What can I learn from this incident? In future, what can I apply from this, from what I've learned from this incident? And then document all of these things down. There you have it. You have a lot of stories, a lot of lessons, and that's how you have great stories to start telling people.
I think you mentioned a very important point. Documentation is actually very important.
Yep.
Right? Because most of the time we think that we don't have a story, or when we want to tell that story, we just don't remember whatever that happens to us in life, right?
Yeah.
So do you have a documentation process of how do you document your stories?
Yeah. So I do actually. I in my iPad or in my phone as well, I actually have OneNote. I use OneNote to document all of my stories, all of the moments. So what happened is that as I go through life, as there's actually something inspirational that my friend told me or Shui told me, I will write it down. I will create a new story bank. I call it the story bank, right?
Right.
One account of the bank. Then I put down there very briefly what happened, when did that happen, what was my key takeaways. So I actually have a list of different stories. So whenever I have talks to give, whenever I have a I want to inspire someone, right? I will just open this story bank and to see, hey, what are the stories that I can actually use to inspire others? Because I always believe this one thing, right? Ideas that are not written down doesn't count. Yeah, because if you don't write it down, right, chances are you're gonna forget it, and the next time you want to retrieve it, no way you're gonna retrieve it. So sometimes, even when you had a bad dream, good dream, right, just wake up, go and write it down, and then go back to sleep, because it's very hard for you to remember it afterward.
Right.
So that's how I document. Yeah.
Right, I really love that, right? So far I see we talk about like how do you document stories and how each of these little stories could actually have a very impactful message to a lot of people out there, right? So right now, before we even talk about like how do you tell great stories, right? But then let's just talk a little bit about what are some of the common mistakes that people should avoid when it comes to storytelling? Because I'm sure you coach a lot of people and you have seen a lot of mistakes, right? So what are some of the common mistakes?
Okay. Yeah, so there are a few common mistakes that I notice when people tell stories, right? The first common mistake that I saw was that there are too many unnecessary details, right? So because when they want to talk about something, right, they have to give a lot of context, they have to give a lot of back history, which is not relevant. And then this one, and then when it comes to the part where the most important part of the story, time is running out or people lose their patience. So one of the important things is that before you start telling your stories, ask yourself, what is the diamond? What is the most important part of this story? And you share that part. The part, those are not really important, just keep it brief. So I think that's the first thing, right? Too long. Second mistake, too short, right? Second mistake, too short. What do you mean by that, right? Is that when people tell a story, like they are just like touch and go. They're like, oh, last week I went to the beach, it was good. Yeah, I had lunch with Shui, good. Yeah, so like there's not much details, there's not much feeling into it, right? So you see, when you are telling a good stories, right, is that when you are sharing some of the key moments, you share in a bit of details what happened. So if you still remember Shui's stories, right, when he was actually receiving that book, he was making it very vivid. He had this conversation. He used dialogue. He told his friend what. And then after that, he received a book. What is the book? And then what is the label there? And how did he feel? So he was actually sharing all these things to paint the pictures. Yeah, because pictures paints 1,000 words. And vivid words paints thousands of pictures. Yeah, so it's really important for you to really make it really, really vivid.
Right.
And the third mistake is that they share a story and they just end it there. And just boom, ended. Right? And then people will thinking to themselves, why are you telling me this story? So the mistake here is that they do not debrief the story.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the very good way for you to debrief the story is to tell them that what have you learned from this story. Yeah. So I think that these three mistakes are the most common one. And if you're able to fix that, right, you will be a really damn powerful storytellers. Yeah.
Right. So I really love that the fact that you said that a story cannot be too long, right? And it also cannot be too short as well. You just need to be just nice, right?
Yeah.
So I remember that there was this metaphor used by a friend of mine, which I really love it. And it goes like this. Okay. So a good story is like a lady wearing a miniskirt. Long enough to cover the important points, but short enough to capture attention. Right? So
Yep.
so that's a good storytelling, right? So you need to learn how to put it just nice for people to get the point, and then you move on. Because I have been through moments in times in meetings where I met people where they tell stories, and at the back of my mind I was thinking like, so what's your point? Right? So this kind of things, like when you give out informations like this, then eventually when you come to the point, people are already losing attention, right? So I think that's a very important thing about storytelling, is you need to learn how to have the ideal length. But in your experience, like what is an ideal length of a story? Do you have a guideline for this?
Well, it depends on your intention and also your purpose, right? So let's say in a corporate presentations, you just want something to captivate the attentions, right? Don't spend 30 minutes telling a story and still not go into the point yet, right? So a story doesn't have to be long, right? So sometimes it can be one-liner stories or a few-liner stories, maybe just a 2-minute story to lead into a point that you want to share. That's good enough, right? Or sometimes if you are being invited to give a talk, like which you do all the time to deliver your keynote, right? So stories, right? I don't know, like probably is maybe every 3 to 5 minutes, and then after that you need to do a nice debrief on that. So it depends on your intention as well. Yeah, so just curious, like maybe you can share your experience. People hire you to tell stories. Yeah, and how do you tell those stories in a way that it's worthy to be paid?
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, I think how I would start off my presentation, usually I would love to use stories to start it off, because I think that stories captures attention of people. One of the most boring way I've seen people start their conversation is, hey, good morning everyone. So today I'm going to talk about this topic. So it's like a typical conversation that people would normally hear, right? So for me, I would normally use stories to actually start off a conversation and to start off my presentation as well. So it depends on what I am talking about, right? But then for me, right, later you're also going to learn the techniques where actually you will realize every story you can relate it to a certain lesson, right? It doesn't matter what story it is, you can relate it if you know how to do it, right? So number one, I would always start off my presentation using a story to capture attention, okay? And then you see in my presentation, let's just say if it's an hour long, right? And I have 3 key pointers that I want to deliver in this 1 hour. So I would think to myself, in these 3 key pointers, rather than just telling them what is it all about and to explain it in theory, can I use a personal experience to share that out, right? So I would either, right, let's just say if we have 3 different pointers that I wanted to share, I would either start off with a story and then link it to how I use that pointer or how this applied to it. Or another way is I would inverse it, meaning to say that I would start off with the pointer first, and then I would end it with a story to actually share that how I actually apply this, and whatever I teach you is not just theory, it is practical application, and I apply this in my story as well. Yeah, so that's how I use stories to tell. So that's why you can see that in a presentation, let's just say if it's an hour long, I have mini stories in between to actually spice things up. And when people hear it, that's where you can capture attention for over like an hour or even 2 as well. Yeah.
That's really interesting, right? Because I think you do more on the platform speaking. People invite you to deliver your keynote messages, right? So I'm just curious, like, do people really pay, and also what makes them wants to invite a speaker in? So because maybe some of our listener here, if you're thinking about becoming a keynote speaker and also becoming to become a storyteller, right? So I think that would be a very good market insight for them as well.
So I think that yes, definitely people would pay to invite keynote speakers to come in, and I would say that my best experience, especially like people who are in sales, real estate, insurance, financial, like they would invest a lot in speakers to come in to train and even to do platform speaking as well. And why is this important, right? It's because even though you might be telling me that, hey, everyone have the expertise in sales, right? They don't want just a normal trainer to come in to train, but they want someone who can tell great stories, because when you tell great stories, that's where you inspire the team members to do even more, right? So that's why I think that for a lot of people out there, they are looking for this kind of speakers, ordinary people with extraordinary story to actually share. So once they share, they inspire their team, then their team would eventually do more. They don't want another speaker that comes in just to teach their team members about techniques and strategies, because these are the things that all these salespeople, they already know it, right? But then if you are able to tell stories that is able to capture attention, people would pay, I think, 4 or 5 figures for it, and even 6 figures.
Okay. What is the range like
What
you?
is the range like for me?
Ah,
I think that for me, myself, at this current moment, the highest I could go, okay, this is private and confidential, an hour of my talk, I could go up to 10 to 12K, or sometimes even 15K as well.
ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it takes time gradually to get there, right? I started off with giving free talks, and then moving on, maybe 3K an hour, 5K an hour, 8K an hour, and 10K to 12K an hour. So that's how I normally gauge that.
Wow, now you know. Okay, good. So thanks for sharing with us such a sensitive information, right? So you see now, maybe Shui, you can also share, right? In our class, we always teach about our Influence Breakthrough Masterclass, right? We always teach our students how do they tell better stories, right? So there's this 3 steps framework that we always guide our students to tell their stories. Would you want to like share with us what is actually the 3 steps framework to tell their stories?
So I think that for you to tell great stories, right? Well, there are a lot of a lot of structures and frameworks that you can use. I always believe that simplicity is key. So that's why inside our class, we teach a very simple structure to tell great stories. 3 steps: what, so what, and also now what, right? So what is basically the setup, right? So what is where you want to go into the story to set the story up so that people are able to know what is the story all about, right? Because without a good setup, there is no lesson to be learned, right? So what, then so what would actually be, why are you telling me this story? Right? What is the lesson that you want to learn? Because if there's no so what, then it's just like you're telling your own personal story, you short scenery, but then basically people don't know what you're trying to say. So that's where the so what comes in, right? And then once the so what is done already, then last one is what I call now what. So now what is where you want to instill certain action steps so that people know what to do next. Because you can give them information, but then if you don't tell them what to do, information are just information. But if you tell them the lessons and what to do, you transform information into insights. And that's where people take action to it, right? So that's an overview of the what, so what, and now what. But maybe let's just dive deeper into each of these elements so that our audience also know like how do they actually tell stories in these 3 formats, right? So maybe we go into the what first, right? So maybe in your opinion, because you have also done trainings as well, share with us like why the setup is so important and how would you normally set your story up?
So I always tell to our students who want to learn about storytelling, right, is to learn from movies. So how do movies do their setup? At the starting, as the first few minutes of the movie, normally what do they show? They show the location first, right?
Yeah.
They show the time, which year was it? What kind of season was that? So that is like painting some pictures on that, setting some context. So the same goes to when you're telling a story as well, right? Share a little bit like a bit background. When was that? What happened? Who are the characters that was involved? Because we need to know a little bit about who are the characters that are actually being involved. Because once you have that, because once you set the characters up, then only we have feelings towards these characters. Because if not, right, if you don't set the characters properly, right, chances are these characters suddenly yell at me, but we don't feel anything because at the start you did not actually set what kind of personality is this character having? What kind of personality is this another person having? So I think that's why it's so important when you're telling a story. So in the what part, it's like give a bit of context. What happened to what are some of the context? Then after that, start by telling about what is actually the key moments that happens in the what part.
I really agree with that because I've seen people where when they start off their story, straight away they go into the challenges, they talk about their problems, right? But then they don't set the story up to a point where we have no connection with that audience.
Yeah.
Right? We have no connection with the speaker itself. So I feel that the setup is really, really crucial. The important thing about setup is that you want the audience to form a connection with this kind of character.
Yep.
Right? So just now you said that like set it up, talk about something that people can relate to, show what is life before that, right? So maybe could you give an example on how you actually set that up, right?
Okay. So if I were to set up, I will use my own story then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I were to tell this, and I've told this story many times about the story of me, how I became a speaker, right? So I will actually start by sharing this. So most of you know me as a speaker, but most of you didn't know that when I was younger, I came from a Chinese education background. I've been speaking Chinese my whole life. Yeah. So back then, my mother, who was really loving, at the same time very strict, and she looked at me and said that, Wicked, if you cannot speak English, you're doomed. So which is why I want to enroll you into a school where everyone spoke English. Okay? So you see, with this until this part of the story, I already set up myself, who I was, and also my mother, and how I got into this all-English school. Yeah. So that whatever that happens next, then you guys already have a context. Because if I suddenly tell you that, guys, when I was younger, when I go into the class, people laugh at me, and then people will start laughing at me, people will make jokes about me, right? You don't feel it, because there's no, connections before that story was being revealed to you. Yeah.
And also I want to add on to that is that, so you talk about what were you like before, and I feel that it's also very important to talk about the beliefs and the mindset that you had previously so that people can relate, right? So like what Wicked said, if we could add on, it's like, since young, I always felt that my English is not good, and I always believe that I cannot speak in front of people. So when you let people into your mind to show what you believe in, that's where people form a stronger connection with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Because those who are listening, maybe they are facing certain things like you did, then they can relate it as well.
Okay, great. So now that you see, we set the context, which is basically the setup, where we talk about the past, how is this character like. Then we talk about what is it all about, right? So then we want to talk about the story itself, right? So how do you paint the story? Once the character is there already, how do we paint the story where the character go through certain challenges in life, and how do we actually do that?
Right. So after you've done setting the context, right, then when you tell the essence of the story, that's when the key moments that matter. So what are some of the ways that you need to tell it with, right? Is that, remember, you are showing the story, not telling a story.
What's the difference there?
Okay, so you see, when you're telling a story, it's like you're just touch and go. So when I was young, I cannot speak well, that's it. But showing is different, right? Showing, you will say something like this. So I still remember there was one time I was late to class, and then I was actually talking with my classmate outside of the corridor of my classroom, right? And then this classroom, last time in a Malaysian school, there's only half wall. So people inside can listen to what I was actually saying. So I was talking with this person, and then I made a grammatical mistake. I said something wrong. I couldn't even remember that. And then one of the students in the class heard my mistake. He decided to become an amplifier. He stood up and he yelled to the whole class, "Wow, look at that. What kind of English does Wicked have?" Then the whole class burst out laughing. I was standing there looking at them, laughing awkwardly as well, but deep down inside, it hurts. Okay, so pause it right there, right? So I was actually painting a pictures of what happened at that moment. All right? So I was sharing about what I saw, what I heard, how was the setting like, the classroom, how was it like, how does the message get transferred to the classroom. So use words that involve the five senses. What are the five senses?
Visual,
auditory,
kinesthetic,
and then
and I don't know.
taste, smell as well, right? So if you can actually point that out, right? So that could also give people more feeling. Yeah, because when people listen to words that triggers the five senses, it is as if they are feeling it as well. And that's when the brain-to-brain coupling happens even stronger.
Yeah, I really agree with what you said, because like as you are sharing that story, in my mind, I already have that kind of picture, right? I already know, you are going through that, and then this is the thing that happens. But then basically, if you were to talk about the story, right, it's basically you just get laughed at by your by by your friends.
Yep.
Right. That's just the entire story. But the way you tell it engage me into that story, and at least for the 1 minute just now, I was engaged into your story, listening to what you have to say. Right. So in NLP, we also said that if you want to learn how to influence, you got to play with the five senses, right?
Yep.
But of course, I believe that the three primary senses, this is a must for you, which is your visual. You got to let people see what they saw and hear about the sound, the voice, the noises around, right? And also really feel that kind of feeling. So if you can engage these three senses, right, I think that people would be eventually you are able to capture people's attention so much more.
Yep, I agree to that. Yeah. So now after telling the stories, so just now you mentioned the next step is what again?
So what?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the message? Yeah. So normally how do you insert the message in?
So for me, I think so what, how would I insert it? I would start off with the reason why I'm telling you this is because of what? Right? Because when people hear that, then they start paying attention. Oh, right now you are trying to get to the points already. Right? So that's why after I do the setup, I talk about the what and what is it all about, right? So pause there. And then I go into, so my dear friends, the reason why I'm sharing with you this is because, and then I insert the lessons that I want to actually share. Right? So when I insert that in, then people will start paying attention and then they know that this story is actually for them. Yeah. So the common mistake that I always see in people is that after they finish the what,
Bye-bye.
they stop there, right? But then when you actually add that in, then it makes your story juicy with a lot of lessons to be learned.
Yeah. And also one beautiful thing about this framework, right, is that not just story, when you share data, yeah, when you share certain data, or for example, you can see that our sales actually dropped by 30% last week from this chart. Most people just stop there, right? But what you can do is actually, the reason why I want to share this finding with you is I want to remind everybody that it's time for us to pick up on our sales effort and also our marketing effort. You can also insert a message towards the data that you are sharing.
Right. So talking about data, I just want to ask your own opinion is like, because people might be thinking that, hey, if I am in a more technical field, I'm presenting data, facts, how do I present it in a storytelling manner? Like, can you still use storytelling in presenting data?
Oh, of course, right. And one of the biggest challenge that I saw, technical background, for example, technical presentations like engineering, accountings, right? They are so focused on telling the informations, this reading, that data, and somehow, right, all these things are disconnected. It's like when people are listening to it, okay, where am I right now? People tend to lose you. So when you use the storytelling framework, right, that's when you can actually set the context first. Very important. What happened before this? What are some of the initiatives that you have done? And then what are the climax? What is the key moments for this thing that you are presenting? Right? And then after that, you end it with a message. Of course, you need to end it with the next step, which is the action. Yeah. So when you connect all these things together, right, then the data's information doesn't sound so scattered. It sounds like it's in a package. It's like connected to one another. Yeah. So there's this teaching that is called business storytelling or data storytelling. That's how the idea came about.
Right. So can you share with us a little bit about how would you tell stories using data? Like, what's a typical story like?
Okay, so for example, right, let's say if you've been running a project, okay, you have been, for example, recently we have been running our customer survey form, okay, and then we have certain findings, right?
Yeah.
So if I were to present it to you and also to the team members, right, so instead of just saying that, I think that this is not working, what I will do is actually I will share the context. So this is how I would apply it in my own context. I will start by sharing the context. So you see, we have been running this accountability system for the past 4 months. So far, the feedback and response was pretty good. And also, we can see that everybody rated quite highly as well. So when we actually did a study and dive deeper, right, I actually noticed that a few feedback from our client actually said this. They wish to have more sparks or more creativity in how we run the content, right? So there was this particular person say about this, oh, I wish that I can actually learn more from other members, or I wish that I can actually have something new in our meeting, right? So you see, when all these things actually being presented to me in the chat, right, I was asking myself, right, how might we actually make things more creative so that it can sustain for a longer run, right? So you see, I'm actually telling you the context. What happened? How was it? And then what is the research that I've done? then what is the key findings that I've learned from here? Yeah, so you don't see it like okay, so how does this relate to me, or what can I do with this information?
I realize that you also bring your audience through your own thought process as well, right?
Yeah.
So it was like you just now you said something, oh, I was thinking to myself, how can I make this better? So when you said that, it's like you are bringing me into your thought process so that you are not just giving information, you are painting a picture inside my head.
Yep. Yeah. So sharing your thought process like every step of the way, that is also part of the, like what I say, vivid, but you're showing, you're not just telling it. Yeah.
Right. And do you think that sometimes like emphasizing a bit about your emotion or feeling it is useful as well?
Yeah, it's really, really useful. I think one of the challenges that a lot of leaders face is that they don't dare to share their feelings. Yeah, they hope to pretend. From my coaching experience, like a lot of leaders, they want to pretend that everything is under control.
Yeah.
Nothing is going wrong, right? All good. They don't share much of their feelings.
Right.
Right. So sometimes sharing your feelings, right, can also connect with the audience much better. So for example, if let's say there's a bad news that you just received from the team, or there's a team that made mistakes, right? So you can actually be open with them. Right? So guys, this morning I actually received a complaint from the client, and our client said our team made a very basic mistakes, and because of that they cancelled the deal. So I'm not blaming you guys, but when I first heard that, right, it actually hurt my heart, because it's something that we've built for so long. So guys, so I just want to bring this for discussions. How might we actually improve this better so that we can truly improve our level of service to other people? Yeah, so you share your feelings or your thought process as well.
All right. So talking about feelings, and also I think that as a leader, it's very important for us to include emotion in storytelling so that people are able to relate to it, right? But then, how do you balance vulnerability, emotion, and also like the information that you wanted to share?
Okay. How do I balance between the information
And how do you not overshare your emotion to a point where people think that you are just expressing your emotion without real value behind your stories?
Okay. So I think that when people say that, oh, just be yourself, go and express yourself, right?
Yeah.
But to what extent? People will always asking, right? So I always believe that whenever you have before you want to prepare for a presentations, you want to share a story, you want to share certain emotions, right? I always believe that you need to first process that feelings, process that story first, right? It cannot be like a raw emotions and then you're just lashing it out and all these things, right? Then you will scare your team members away. So what I'll do is actually, right, that's why your daily reflections comes in. When something happens, right, ask yourself or write it on a piece of paper, what is the key takeaway from this message, from this incident, right? How can I use this incident to inspire my team members? Right? What do I want them to learn from this entire stories? So you see, when you have that in mind, right, when you talk, right, you will not overshare. You will share it in just enough for them to get the message that you want them to get it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think to add on to that is basically when you want to express your emotion, you need to filter that emotion once first by writing it down, right? So once you do that already, now the next time when you want to revisit that emotion, for me, I feel that the goal is not to just express it out, but to share it and express it so that people get the message behind that emotion. So you're not just sharing it for the sake of like wanting to express yourself, but you are expressing your emotions so that people feel it and they get the message behind it much, much better.
Yeah, agree.
Right?
Is to process that once first.
Very well. So right now we talk about 2 steps, right? So what, okay, and then moving on to the now what, right?
Alright.
So now what is basically like action steps that you want to take. So how do you turn your story into a lesson that people can remember and they take action on?
Okay, so how I would define, you see, so what and now what, right? So what is a lesson? Now what is like, now what? It's like, what's the next actions for all these audiences, right? Because everybody listen, if you tell people a story, wow, sounds really good. A message, wow, sounds very good. But what's the next thing that I need to do? That's when you cover inside this now what, right? So the now what is that I tend to always relate it to my audience situation. I will tend to use words like, the same goes for your situations, right? So for example, let's say if my lesson was actually never give up. Okay, let's say my lesson was never give up. I will link it to them. Let's say if I'm telling to a group of people who are learning public speaking, I'll tell them, now guys, the message just now you have listened from this story is never give up. Now, the same goes to when you guys are preparing for your presentations. When you are preparing for your presentations, definitely you're going to face struggle. You're going to face challenges. You tend to ask yourself whether I can do it or not. But trust me, if you don't give up, chances are you will become better and better. So the next time, whenever you feel like giving up, remember to tell yourself that just persist, just one more, and never give up. Okay? So I'm actually tying it back to their own context. Maybe they have a different context than us, so we need to tie it back to them so that they find it relevant and they know what to do next.
Okay, so for me, I think that I really love that because you talk about the same goes to you, right? So this is basically what we call anchor points inside our story, and we do that in these three processes as well, right? So basically, you can see that, like, to sum it up, right? So we talk about the what, and once we talk about the what already, so we talk about so what. So what, the anchor sentence that we always use is that the reason why we are telling you this story is because then they get the lesson there, right? And then anchor it to the now what is where the same goes to you as well, and then we basically put in an action step for them, right? And how do you normally end your story powerfully? Is it like with a quote, or with it one action step, or how do you normally do that?
Yeah, my favorite go-to is actually I like to end it with quote, right? Because quote said by someone else normally carries more weight than the new words that we try to put it up together, right? So, for example, you try to imagine. I'll give you two demos here, right? Version 1, right? Imagine I end the speech, guys. So as a result of that, you need to be really, really open-minded. You need to open your mind, okay? Nah, not really there. But imagine if I end it like this, guys. I want you to remember this: our mind works like a parachute. It works best when it's open. So let's keep an open mind. Thank you. Right? So you see, version 1 and version 2, what's the difference? Right? Version 2, you tend to remember it much better. Version 2, I use lesser words, but I convey the same amount of message, or if not more impactful than the first one. Yeah. So I will always believe that the ending is really important because people remember first what they hear last. Right? So you need to make sure that you end it with high energy, bang, then people will be remembering, wow.
So what's the quote again? People remember first what they heard last,
Yeah,
right?
people remember first what they hear last. Yeah, because the ending is like the last thing that they heard from you, so you really need to ensure that you end it on a high note.
I really love how you are able to insert all this like wise quote in the middle of your sharing, right? So how do you do that? Does that come naturally, or you read a lot, you remember intentionally? How do you do that?
Yeah, I read, and also when I listen to some of the classes, whenever I document it down. Whenever I listen to some really powerful quote, I'll write it down. Whenever I listen to some really inspiring quote, I just write it down. Yeah, so when you have a bank of your quotes or stories, right, that's when it becomes really, really handy. Yeah, and in fact, in NLP, there's this thing called loss performative as well, right? I think that's also a very powerful way for you to end your speech.
Yeah.
So you want to share a little bit very quickly on what is a...
So loss performative and quotes are two very different things, but very powerful with the same purpose of you ending a story. So the difference is a quote is where basically you heard someone say something and then you use that person's statement as a quote. Right, so that's a quote. But a loss performative is where you don't know who says that, but it just sounds good. Okay, so I'll give you an example. An apple a day keeps a doctor away. Right, like you don't know who says it, right?
Yeah.
But then, like, imagine that if you're giving a health talk, guys, take care of your health and eat fruits more because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Right? Yeah. So that was like people like, wow, okay, then if you really challenge this, right, you don't know who says it, right? So that's why you see a loss performative in NLP, we talk about as long as it sounds good, it rhymes, that's where people tend to accept that into their subconscious.
Yes.
Right? It's just like I always tell people that, hey, every mess that you go through, you are able to actually overcome this and you have a very powerful message to share. And then I end off with this, because remember this, you can always turn your mess into a message. Right? And then if you ask me who said this quote, I don't know, but it just sounds good, right? And it rhymes well. So I think that a good story is just like music to your ears, right? And when you hear something that rhymes well, you remember it better as well.
Yeah. Yes, turn your breakdown into
breakthroughs.
breakthroughs. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually a loss performative as well.
So you can actually create a lot of all these things. Doesn't necessarily mean quote. It could also be something that you make it up and it sounded logical, and you can rhyme it as well.
All right, good. Right, so with that being said, I think that we covered a lot about storytelling already, and I really hope that you guys are able to learn something from it. Right, so with that being said, I just want to thank all of you for your time. Thank for your sharing as well. I really learned from you in this conversation as well. And to all of you guys here out there who is listening, I hope that you take whatever that is, apply this, tell better stories, because the only way for you to master storytelling is to learn how to tell more stories, and you get better at it one day at a time. Right? So with that, I really hope that you enjoy this episode, and if you like it, don't forget to subscribe, like, and also to share it for someone who needs this as well. Okay, so with that, thank you so much everyone, and I look forward to see you very, very soon.
See ya.